Okay, it's time for a rant slash review that nobody's gonna be listening to probably. Nobody really gives a shit about. Um, also spoilers. For those of you guys who haven't seen the film yet, don't listen to my review thing. And for anybody who was looking for somebody who thought that the movie was actually good, that's not me. I did not like the film, so it's not the type of thing that this is. So Prometheus, a new science fiction film by Ridley Scott, and a movie that I have been waiting some years to see. Um, Ridley Scott's made some of my most favorite films, especially in the sci-fi genre. Blade Runner, Alien, all considered classics. Um, of science fiction. And so when I, heard that he was working on another film, I was very excited. I got pretty hyped. Actually beyond hyped. But ultimately, what I saw when I went to the theater was nothing short of disappointing. So let's talk about the film a little bit. We'll talk about some pros and cons. Pros. A lot of people have said, and it's true that the film looks very nice. It's filmed well. What other the pros are there? David the android, played by what's his name? Michael Fassbender. I probably just murdered his name. I thought he did an excellent job as David the android. Also, the film starts off very interestingly, with the whole entire sacrifice of the alien in order to make life. But I'll get into that a little bit because that kind of leads into my cons of the film. But yeah, Ridley Scott doing another science fiction film. I heard that it might have been loosely based on Alien, but that it wasn't really going to be fully based on Alien. And so the fact that he was approaching this new film as kind of an original project, not really tied into any of his previous works, really left a lot of mystery as to what he was going to show in the film, which got me even more excited than I was initially. And everybody keeps saying, when you go see the film, you can't go in there with any expectations whatsoever. And it's somewhat that's reasonable, I didn't go into the film with any expectations that it was going to be anything like Alien or Blade Runner, for that matter. I was expecting, something he's never done before, a wholly original new project. But despite that, there are expectations. That this isn't some random director that we're dealing with here. This is a individual who's responsible for at least 3 masterpiece films: Gladiator, Alien, and Blade Runner. And most artists are lucky within their whole entire career span to at least have one masterpiece. And this man is sitting on 3. So, did I come with some expectations? Yes. And really the only expectation I came with was the expectation of seeing a good film. And not just a good film, but a great film. And that's not too hard to believe either. I mean, Ridley Scott is known as a perfectionist. He's always been known as a perfectionist. Ever since he's been filming film, he's been historically known to be difficult to work with because he requires specific things. He is a perfectionist, or at least at one point in time in his career was a perfectionist. So it's not unreasonable to have some expectations And I don't think that it's unfair to have some expectations when coming into a film. Now, expectations regarding plot lines or the atmosphere of the film or exactly what the film is going to be, yeah, that's probably unfair to have some expectations in that regard. But expecting a great film from an individual known to make masterpiece films, the things that Prometheus suffers from, bad plot lines, bad writing, hardly any character development, are not mistakes that Ripley's ever made in the past, really. And it was just shocking to me that this got past his hawk eye, which tells me, in his older age, he's gotten pretty lazy. But let's move on to some of the cons in the film. I'll start off where I left off with the pros. The start of the film. Now, at the beginning of the film, we come to this planet Earth. It's barren, except for a waterfall. We don't see any other kind of plant life or animal life. Nothing to indicate that this planet has any existing form of life form or organism. Now, it could have had some form of life on it before these aliens got here, but we're never shown that. So we're led to believe that this one alien, sacrificed himself to create genetic DNA to form us. And not just us, but every single living thing on this planet, which I find kind of hard to believe that one single alien genetical materials is enough to form all the different species of organisms that are on this planet. But, it's science fiction. Keyword being fiction. So I'll suspend my disbelief. Jumping into the film right at the beginning. You have two scientists, Holloway and Elizabeth Shaw. And they go into this cave and they find a pictogram that they found in some other caves around the world. And essentially, right away, the beginning of this movie just goes for the cheese. It's just corny as hell. They're looking at these pictograms and they're like, looking at this basic primitive pictogram, and she's like, I think they want us to go find them. Well, how do you know that? How do you know that they want you to go find them? How do you know that it's not a warning not to go there? And that's another thing, and this goes, further deeper into the film. But why would the space jockeys make a map back to a planet that they were using as a bioweapons storage container, essentially? That doesn't make any sense at all. But whatever. So anyways, these guys somehow get funding by the Wayland Corporation for this crap. Another thing that I find hard to believe, that just a couple of pictograms and no other evidence whatsoever is enough to convince somebody to allow you to have a multi-billion-dollar expedition to another planet that you somehow find in a cluster of stars. But science fiction. And right now I guess you can claim that I'm nitpicking, but whatever. And then they get to the planet, and before they enter into the planet right away, and then they begin scanning. Now, the problem I have with this is that you're going to a planet that you're expecting to have some form of intelligent life that is millions of years, maybe even billions of years more advanced than yourselves. And you're just dropping into orbit right into their planet before doing an initial scan or dropping a droid or some form of scanner or something onto the planet to see how civilized this planet that you're dropping down on is. What happens if there's whole entire industrialized civilizations on this planet? What happens if they have some kind of defense mechanism to protect themselves from maybe another invading alien species or something like that? What happens if you drop into orbit and they feel threatened somehow and then they decide to just blow your freaking ship out of the sky? Whatever. But anyways, of course, the planet's barren. And they fly around until they scan some area that looks like it was formed by an intelligent um, organism or intelligent life force. Um, and so they land in the midst of it. And eventually they find themselves down into what they initially think is a cave. Um, and this is the point where, I mean, before everything else was nitpicking, you know. But at this moment on, this movie goes from an acceptable amount of fictional things to just being plain freaking retarded. You got these groups of scientists, and I say that term loosely, that go down into this cave area. Now, before they even go down deeper into the cave, they scan for traces of oxygen or whatnot. And Charlie Holloway, this retarded douchebag, and I'll get to that a little bit later, decides to take off his freaking mask because there's oxygen. Okay, well, what about bacteria? What about airborne pathogens? Any number of diseases that you could have just brought back on the ship with you and killed everybody on the frickin' ship. But you're going to take your helmet off like a dumbass. And not only does he take off his helmet, but then everybody else says, oh, well, he's still alive. That's okay. Because we all know that viruses and bacterial infections show up immediately upon impact, upon contact. So everybody else decides, oh, yeah, well, he's all right. You know, he's still breathing, so we'll take off our helmets too. Fucking stupid. And they haven't even entered inside the cave yet. They're still somewhat on the surface level. What makes you think that below that the air is safe? But whatever. So they drop down inside this cave area, explore a little bit. David activates some kind of hologram image that looks like it was a previous recording. But it's never explained by anybody. Nobody seems nobody seemed like they were curious about what that hologram image was. I mean, they were freaked out by it, but that was just about the extent of it. But anyways, they eventually find this engineer who's dead, and you know, they do a scan on him or whatever, and they figure out that the guy's been dead for about 10,000 years. 10,000 years he's been dead, sitting there, head decapitated. And how David knows how to open all these doors and operate all this machinery is a mystery to me. It might have something to do with his language studies or whatnot he was doing on the ship while they were all in cryosleep, but that I mean, even still, I mean, he operates it like it's no big deal at all, but whatever, he's an android, I guess. It makes more sense than having a human do it, I suppose. But anyways, they find this 10,000-year-old dead space jockey. And these two scientists, one who's this tattooed freak who's a geologist. Well, I like to study rocks. I didn't sign up for dead big fucking things, or whatever he says, dumbass pussy. And he sees this space jockey lying there that's been dead for 10,000 years. And he and this other scientist that looks like Otacon from frickin' Metal Gear Solid decide that they've had enough, and this freaked them out, you know, this dead thing. And so they're going to find their way back to the ship and leave everybody else standing there like a bunch of douchebags. So those two go off. Now, they eventually, like I said, David opens the door, and they eventually go into this chamber full of these pod things. And, of course, they change the atmosphere in the room and everything, and the things begin to oxidize, and they don't notice that right away. And so they're all going around into this room touching shit. I mean, I just don't understand what these scientists are supposed to be, quote unquote scientists, but they don't even follow basic safety precautions. They're around going around touching shit, touching the black goo, touching the green goo, touching everything. It's like, how about you stop fucking touching shit? It's just. But anyways, they decide to bring back the decapitated head of the space jockey, and another non-scientific, retarded piece of crap happens, in which they try to do a Frankenstein and shock its nervous system back and try to trick it to think that it's still alive. I don't even know who the fuck thought of that, but that is literally the most retarded crap I've ever heard in my life. The thing's been dead for 10,000 years. And you're going to try to fry its nervous system into thinking that it's still alive to accomplish what? And of course, it doesn't work, and they just end up destroying the only evidence at that time of an engineer that they have. All the while this is happening, we got those two fucking retarded ass scientists who somehow get lost in a cave. In the cave. They got full 3D mapping in real time. Full communication with Captain Janik. The communication lines are never broken. Their data feeds are never broken. So how the fuck they got lost is beyond a mystery to me. I mean, that just doesn't even freaking make any sense. Everybody else found their way back just fine. But these two freaking retards get lost. I mean, what's your IQ? I mean, it's got to be high, right? I mean, you got to have a fucking high intelligence to go on an expedition. $1 billion expedition to another freaking planet to discover possible alien life. I would expect your PhD to be pretty, or your IQ, excuse me, to be pretty freaking high. But apparently these guys lack the common sense of looking at the map that's being mapped for them in real time, so they get lost like a bunch of morons. So we could have them go back into the pod room. That at this point, all the pods are starting to leak this black shit since they've already oxidized. Of course, the black shit falls on some worms. And this is another thing. This is another example of lazy script writing right here. These two pussies get scared of a 10,000-year-old dead mummified alien. But when they find this viper-like, snake-like creature, they decide to keep poking at it. And not only do they decide to... I mean, did they tell anybody on the ship? I can't remember off the top of my head. But did they tell anybody in the ship what they found? I mean, this is an actual living organism on this planet. But they keep freaking poking at it, and poking at it, and poking at it, and irritating the shit out of it. Something you wouldn't even do on our own planet with one of our own snakes, especially if you didn't know if that snake was venomous or not. But they keep doing it anyways, and eventually the thing gets irritating, and surprise, surprise, it kills them. Which, wasn't surprising at all, just like nothing else in this film. And then, I mean, I don't know, I'm trying to think of characters in here besides David, that had any form of development. I mean, everybody talks about Janik, the black captain of the ship. And they say that they like him. I'm thinking to myself, what the hell is there to like about the guy? I mean, he's got two crew members that are lost. That it almost seems apparent that he just doesn't even give a shit about him. Doesn't seem worried at all. They're lost in a cave on an alien planet, and they can't find their way back. And he's like, "Oh, well, we'll just get you in the morning. See you later. Bye bye." I mean, what kind of character development does he have besides the fact that he likes his accordion or whatever the fuck that was, and he likes sex? You know, trying to bang Miss Vickers. I mean, I guess if you want to look at that as a character trait, then that's on you. But I really didn't see anything worth mentioning on that guy. And then we get to the two main scientists, Elizabeth Shaw and Holloway. Now, Elizabeth Shaw, she's got this Christian religion thing going on, you know, that the movie doesn't fail to remind us 20 freaking times during the whole entire film. I mean, we know that she's a fucking Christian. You can stop reminding us. And some of the lines that she has in this, I mean, I just feel sorry for the actors, really. I really do. I mean, I think the only reason why David was such a compelling character, besides, you know, the fact that Michael Fassbender is a good actor, is the fact that he had the best lines in the script. Everybody else got stuck with some of the most generic bullshit that I don't even think the best actors in their prime could have made this shit sound any good. I mean, seriously. I mean, when one of the guys asks Elizabeth, you know, if knowing that the aliens created life or created human life destroyed her faith, she snobbingly replies, well, who created them? Well, what the fuck does that have to do with anything? That wasn't the question, was it, bitch? I mean, here's another question for you. If you have a religion that has a book that clearly states in it that in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth and all the life forms within, that he had a direct hand in creating not only all the life forms on the planet, but also human life, and you find out later that it's actually an alien species that created human life and not God, that kind of destroys the first half of the Bible, which negates pretty much the rest of it. I mean, you just don't get to say, well, who created them? I mean, and then, oh, well, I choose to believe. Oh, really? You just choose to believe. Ignore all evidence to the contrary. You just choose to believe. Why is that a character trait that is admirable? You choose to believe. Well, you know what? I got the biggest penis in the world. May or may not be true. But since we're in the process of just believing whatever the hell we want to believe just for the frick of believing it, then that's what I choose to believe. Seriously. Fuck's sake, man. And then we get to Holloway, man. Don't even get me fucking started on this guy, dude. I have never seen such a crybaby douchebag in my life. I mean, he's just the epitome of a douchebag. Like, there are some people, like, when they play a douchebag in a film, that's their whole entire purpose as a character, is to play a douchebag. And they excel at it, and they do it well. And it's actually fairly entertaining. But the way that, what the fuck's this guy's name? Way that Logan Marshall Green plays this guy, like he's not trying to be a douchebag. I mean, he plays him like, you could just picture this guy, like imagine walking on the street and you just see this guy, and you ask him for an autograph, and he'd just turn around and look at you like, what the fuck's an autograph? Like, this guy would actually seriously be a douchebag in real life. I mean, I did not like his character. And when he makes, like, the most amazing discovery scientifically ever, he gets drunk and just sits around and pouts like a little fucking crybaby. Because I didn't get to talk to the aliens. I wanted to talk to them. I wanted to ask them questions. It's like, get real, dude. Seriously, what the fuck? And then his suicide at the end after he got infected was David, actually, after he acted like a douchebag. which is something I'll get to later. But every single scene in this was so rushed. I don't know if it was the editing in the film that ended up just making everything feel like it was so rushed, like there was no point to certain scenes that didn't connect at all to any other scenes. Like you could have just left a scene out and moved to the next scene, and probably would have transitioned a lot better. But what exactly was the point of him getting infected, of David infecting him with that? I mean, some people have said, oh, well, it's Peter's Wayland decision. I mean, why he would do that, I don't know. I mean, I'm assuming David knew exactly what this compound was. How, I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, even with all of... I mean, we don't have any substance like that on the planet, so how the hell did David even know what this crap was going to do to the guy? How did he know that infecting him with this wouldn't start some kind of viral outbreak that in the end could have killed Peter Wayland, thus destroying the whole entire point and purpose of why he went along? But anyways, Holloway gets infected with this shit, realizes he's infected, after having a meaningless, forced sex scene for no reason. I mean, I seriously, the scenes in this movie that just do not need to be here. It's like clutter. It's like fucking clutter of the film. You got scenes that have no connection or any bearing or does nothing for the film whatsoever. And then you have other scenes that should be in the film that aren't in the film that could have helped to kind of push the film along and actually add some depth to it. But instead, we get a forced sex scene for no reason. And this douchebag doesn't even bother telling Elizabeth that he's infected and that he just had sex with her and that she could possibly be affected too. But decides to just go down into the cave with everybody, gets sick, has to be brought all the way back up, and then eventually I just decides to kill himself. And the way that it happens is just so, oh my god. I mean, he's like writhing in pain one minute, then he just stands up, just meanders right over to the ship. It's just like, just do it. Yep, I'm ready to go. Blast me with some fire. Hit me with the fire. Hit me with the fire. It's like, what the fuck? I mean, I didn't feel anything for the character. I was happy that he died. Because then I didn't have to hear his crybaby douchebagginess anymore. And of course, Elizabeth goes screaming her freaking head off. Like she does halfway through the freaking film. She's just sitting there screaming her goddamn head off. Fuck's sake, man. So then we get to the end. All the problems with the end. The unsurprising reveal of Wayland. Wayland's on this ship. But we already knew that before they even showed him. Another example of a piece of scene that didn't need to be there, that actually its absence could have actually helped the film. That scene where Vickers and David were having that discussion in the hall totally destroyed any kind of anticipation or any kind of surprise, I should say, when they revealed Wayland at the end. You already knew that Wayland was on the ship or that he was alive in some way. You already knew that. And the other unsurprising reveal that Vickers was actually his daughter, you knew when she walked into that room. At least I knew when she walked into that room. And you definitely had to know after that conversation or while that conversation was taking place that they were daughter and father. But of course, when she's going away, she has to look at him and say, "Father." Treating the audience like a bunch of retards. Like we can't figure shit out for ourselves. And then Elizabeth wakes up randomly. I don't know what the hell happened to her. I'm assuming she passed out because of grief. Wakes up. She's pregnant. David's sitting over her. This scene just does not make any sense to me. Okay, he's sitting over her, And she's like, well, I'm pregnant, 3 months pregnant. What the hell? What's inside of me? Get it out. He's like, well, we don't have the tools necessary to do that. So sorry. And he's acting all nefarious like he planned the whole entire goddamn thing. And then he just leaves her in the room, and then when the other scientists he actually stabs her with a syringe and knocks her out. But when the other scientists come in to collect her, I guess to put her into cryo sleep for some reason, I just do not understand why. She fights him off, and then she goes into the room where Vickers was staying at, where that surgery machine is for Peter Weyland, I'm assuming. And she decides to get the thing out of her. This whole entire time this is happening, I'm assuming that people are looking for her. They want to know where she is. And you would think that somebody would be like, well, or at least Vickers would be like, oh, well, there's a surgery machine in my room. Maybe she's in there. We could take a peek. But no, she just goes through the whole entire surgery. Because, we have to have a gory scene for no reason. Thing rips her open while she's conscious. She doesn't pass out for any of this shit. She's injecting herself with some anesthesia, I guess. But she's not passing out. Has this thing ripped from her stomach and then staples. It staples her stomach back together. Now, I know that staples can be used, to seal up a wound. They've done it before. I've had that happen. I've had staples. But not when I've had, my frickin' stomach and intestines ripped open to remove something. That's ridiculous. And then she emerges from this pod, crawls around in pain, and just stumbles into a room. And Peter Weyland's just sitting in a chair like, yo, what's up? And David's sitting there looking at her like, oh, hey there, how's it going? And nobody gives a shit. No, where were you, or what have you done, or where's the creature that was inside of you? None of that. They just look at her like, oh, well, I see you got your problem taken care of. Good for you. Congrats. You want to come down to the cave with us and look at the engineer that's still alive? After you just got your stomach ripped open, and you probably would be confined to a frickin' wheelchair or a bed ridden for a few days. You want to come down to and crawl around in the cave? Visit the aliens, guys. You want to visit the alien? And she's like, yeah, just give me a second so I could collect myself. And then she straps on her suit. She goes down into the cave. And of course, Peter Weyland comes down there too. Nobody even bothered opening or trying to engage this thing before Peter Weyland even got there. He's just going to crawl down into the cave in his old man suit and talk to the engineer, I suppose, which ended up not going too well for him. And that's another thing. I'm sitting here with my jaw left open at the stupidity in this. And I get to this scene, and I'm thinking to myself, well, here it is. This is the point in time where this film could have salvaged itself, somewhat. This is the point in time where we need something. We need to understand a little bit of what these creatures are, what these engineers are. We don't need all the answers. But we need some semblance of intelligence from these things. And they wake it up. And David says something to it. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, here we go. And one of the most laziest, disappointing scenes in the whole entire film. This thing rips off David's head, smashes Weyland with it, and it smashes another scientist and proceeds to chase Elizabeth. I am dumbfounded. I guess maybe we had to have the escape the monster chase sequence or something. Some kind of bullshit. I don't even know. And then that whole entire conversation that Peter Weyland and David have before Peter Weyland dies. Oh, there really is nothing. Well, so sorry, sir. Safe journey. I'll see you on the other side. Fucking A, man. Are you serious? Yes, you got smashed by one form of intelligent life. And there's nothing else out there. Really? Man, dude, so much cheese, dude. I just can't even. Oh my god. But anyways, somehow Elizabeth escapes, after having a tentacle monster ripped out of her stomach. Has enough stamina to escape the ship. Yells at Janek to, we can't let this thing escape. It's gonna go back to Earth and destroy Earth. Fucking Janek, man. What was that other thing that he said? Oh, something about, yeah, these aliens aren't stupid enough to, make weapons of mass destruction on their own doorstep. How the fuck do you know that? Yeah, people just know shit. I mean, what? How do you even know they're weapons? Are you a scientist? Did you read the script? I mean, seriously, what the fuck? You just know shit. Okay. And then I ain't about to let any of these alien black goo get onto the planet Earth. I do whatever necessary to stop the ship from getting over to the Earth. Yeah, I just be doing anything to stop the black goo from getting to the Earth. Okay, all right, dude. All right, good for you. So Elizabeth tells him, we can't let this ship go, and he's like, oh, okay. Well, we ain't got no weapons, so I guess we'll do a suicide sequence that's supposed to mean something, but in the end, it absolutely means nothing because nobody has any form of character development whatsoever. So it ends up being hilarious. I mean, he's got his two co-pilots in the front, just like, well, is that bet still on? Yeah, well, you can pay me on the other side. Well, howdy do? Let's go. Whee! And they just crash into the alien ship. Now, a couple of questions. One, how did they even know that they would be able to stop that ship? It was huge. And speaking of huge, too, is anybody surprised by how small the engineers are in the film? I mean, in that scene in Alien, when they go into the alien chamber for the first time and they see the space jockey for the first time, that thing was ginormous. It was at least 5 times the size of a normal human. It was just huge. Engineers are fairly small in this film, but I guess that's nitpicking, amongst other things. I mean, and then they somehow bring down the ship. Elizabeth Shaw and fucking stupid-ass Vickers, who left the ship, and that doesn't make any sense. I mean, they just shot into a pod and escaped the ship. I mean, how the fuck were they supposed to leave the planet? I mean, at that time, they didn't know about any of the other ships that were already there. I mean, what was their plan then? I guess they didn't have one. So Vickers and Elizabeth are running in a straight line while the Circle ship is crashing down on them because, you can't just run off to the side. You got to run off to a freaking straight line. And, of course, since it's a chase sequence, you got to trip over something. Trip over your shoelaces or whatever because you don't tie your fucking shoes. So Elizabeth falls down and almost gets crushed. Vickers gets crushed. And then at the end of this thing, I mean, it's still not over. At this point in time, I'm just sitting in my seat, looking at the screen, just like, is it over yet? Is it over yet? Please tell me it's over. And it's not. She gets on to this pod-like ship, or the piece of the ship that was, released before the initial front part was Janek and his crew crushed into the engineer ship. And she's walking around, and then all of a sudden David somehow gets a hold of her. I don't even know how. I guess he's got access to her intercom system. Although I didn't see her wearing any kind of headgear or anything like that. But he's talking to her, letting her know that, the big bad alien engineer is coming onto the ship because he's pissed off that you crashed his ship and he wants to kill you. Because he just can't get on another ship that David clearly knows that are there, and you would think that the engineer would know as well and just go back to Earth or go wherever the fuck he was going and just be done with it. No, we got to have the chase sequence, the alien chase sequence. I mean, seriously, these engineers are supposed to be. I mean, I'm not getting the intelligent life form out of these things. These things are supposed to be responsible for. They're supposed to be a million years of advanced than us. I mean, they have space travel. They can travel to different planets. They have advanced ships that operate by musical notes, and they got freaking material that could change shit and mutate it on a biological level. And it's reduced to nothing but a mindless killing machine of me engineer, me no like ye humans, me smash your face in with android head, me come in and try to kill little Earth girl, me big bad alien, the big bad alien. Oh my god, dude, for fuck's sake. And so this thing breaks into the ship where she's at, I guess, so we could have a scene where this gigantic face hugger thing that somehow mutated in a split second after being just a little tentacle thing that ripped out of Elizabeth Shaw's body is now just ginormous fucking face hugger. And I guess we have to, have a face hugger hug a engineer so we could get a xenomorph, guys. Biggest fucking piece of fan service I've ever seen in my goddamn life. So anybody who saw the film would be like, well, at least there was a xenomorph. I guess it kind of does have something to do with Alien. That's pretty cool. I got to see a xenomorph, so I can't complain. Fucking, oh my god. And the xenomorph looked fucking retarded, too. Like, it looked straight up just goddamn retarded. And then you have the stupid setup for a direct sequel. She leaves. She's like, Dave's like, do you want to go back to Earth? She's like, no, I want to go to the planet where they're at. I want some answers. What fucking answers are you planning on getting? This thing just tried to kill you for no freaking reason. And you're going to go to a planet full of them? Did you bring David along? Because you don't speak the fucking language. Don't understand the goddamn culture. I mean, what the hell are you planning on accomplishing? Besides absolutely nothing. But we got to have a setup for a direct sequel, guys. So that Ridley Scott and company can make more money. I mean, I just don't understand how anybody could like this film. I really don't. I mean, maybe if you turn your brain off. And then you hear all the stupid shit that people say. Oh, well, it's a beautifully shot film. Okay. And? I mean, did I just pay $10 to see 2 hours worth of a pretty picture? And as far as gorgeous shots come, give me a fucking break. I mean, yeah, the movie looked good, to its credit. But you want to see gorgeous scenes. You look at things like the opening scene in Blade Runner, where you're coming down into the city, that post-apocalyptic city, filled with nothing but fire and smoke and fumes. The neon signs everywhere. All the flying cars all over the place. The pyramid-shaped buildings. Grandeur on such a scale. All done before the age of computer CGI-generated graphics. Or how about the opening scene? Or not the opening scene, but how about the scene in Alien where all the crew members get out of their stasis pods? Or close to the end with that strobe light effect and Ripley just running all over the place. Images, man. Images that stick into my mind to this day. I did not see one single example of that in that film. You think about it, the only things that you get to see, the only different scenes you see is you see the beginning part, barren earth. Then you go to like something that looks like the New Zealand or whatever when they're exploring the caves. Then you go onto the spaceship. Then you go on to another planet that looks barren, and then you go into a cave system that has some hieroglyphs and probably just like one or two rooms that are actually look interesting. And then other people, well, it leaves you with questions. Questions, guys. It leaves you with them, and you just don't like the film because it leaves you with questions. Okay, let's go there. This film doesn't leave you with questions. This film leaves you with plot holes. This film leaves you with scenes that are in the film that do nothing to enhance the film whatsoever. I have no problem with a film that leaves you with questions. 2001: A Space Odyssey does that pretty well. I mean, the thing doesn't even bother giving you a basic plot line. It's basically just nothing but questions. But Alien has a basic plot line, a premise. Ship out in space, gets a distress signal from a planet, decides to go investigate. You're given what you need to know. You're given the crew members' names, how they interact with each other, what their daily routines might even be. You're given all the information that you need to know in order to make the film work. And when you have to ask basic questions like why certain people do things and then don't give a crap anymore, why certain scenes are in there that don't enhance anything, those are not good questions. And all the questions in Blade Runner and Alien, pretty huge questions, are questions that exist outside the plot line. There are things that enhance the plot line. But the plot doesn't necessarily need them in order to move it forward. I mean, all the questions in Prometheus, I'm sitting there thinking, why the hell are these guys retarded? I'm asking all the wrong questions. I should be asking myself, why the engineers? I mean, I should be asking myself, who are the engineers? Why did they come to the planet? I should be asking myself all these basic questions, the big questions, instead of focusing on the little shit that just makes every single scene so fucking irritating. It leaves you with questions. Questions good, all answers bad. Okay, whatever. You can't go into this movie with expectations. Yeah, you can. You can't expect a good film, at least. Read another comment on YouTube. This guy, it's a classic already. Right up there with Blade Runner and Alien and 2001: A Space Odyssey. It will be remembered for years to come. Yeah, the fuck right. No, it's not. I mean, Jesus Christ, man. I mean, seriously, how do people... I'm sitting in the theater thinking to myself, what the fuck did I just watch? And then I go on YouTube and I look at reviews and everybody's like praising this film. Like, oh man, it's the greatest film ever made. It's so good. It's so good. I'm sitting there like, did we even watch the same film? Did everybody else have different 3D glasses than I did? I mean, what the hell did everybody see that I didn't see? Because all I saw was a movie that suffered from one of the most generic plot lines ever devised. Characters you just don't give a shit about. And certain fan-pleasing pieces of crap scenes, dude. It's just, ugh. And of course, the great Red Letter Media. Oh man, dude. Fuck Red Letter Media. If you don't like Prometheus, then you should just stop watching movies. Maybe I should stop watching movies, since nobody knows what the fuck a good movie is anymore. I mean, seriously, a movie devoid of a good plot line, character development, good script writing, is not a good film. I just don't know how you could sit here and just think that you just saw a good film. It's mind-boggling to me. I mean, I seriously think that Ridley Scott just pulled a George Lucas better than George Lucas could have pulled a George Lucas. Because not only did he make bank on all the hype for this film, but he's actually got morons defending this shit. I mean, I seriously think people just want to like this film so much that it like fried their brain, and now they have to like this film. I just, oh my god. It's generic. It's bullcrap. It does not belong in the lexicon of Ridley Scott's film. I mean, seriously, if you think this is the greatest science fiction film to be made since frickin', I don't know, Blade Runner or whatever, you need to get your head scanned for brain tumors. Man. I mean, seriously, you wait years to see a fucking film. And you get this shit. Whatever, gotta wrap this up. In closing, fuck the world.